A big shout out to my co-host, Ed Wallace, who returned to Law and Crime as their go-to forensic expert. He brought his forensic insights and knowledge while showing everyone what crime time is all about. Let's take a listen.
More charges filed today for a Waukesha teenager accused of killing his mom and stepdad. Nikita Casap is accused of killing his mom, Tatiana Casap, and his stepdad, Donald Meyer, living with the bodies for nearly 2 weeks and then going on the run.
The teenager was not in school for 2 weeks at Waukesha West High School before a school resource officer and his grandmother requested a welfare check at the family home. It's there police found his mother, Tatiana Casap, and his stepdad, Donald Meyer, dead with dried blood surrounding. According to court documents, the teenager left the scene with a gun and their dog in the family vehicle. Police pinged Casap's phone in Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, Wyoming, and Colorado. On Saturday, police in Waukene, Kansas, pulled him over at a traffic stop where Casap was arrested and evidence was found.
Joining me now, former crime scene investigator Ed Wallace, also the co-host of the Crime Time YouTube channel with DutyRon. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. We spoke when this story first broke and he was under arrest, yet to be charged with murder. Now he's facing these 2 charges among others. We'll talk about the bond situation in a moment, but we have this criminal complaint that we've read through. What's your reaction? There's just so much to talk about in this case after what we just learned in these 14 pages.
Yeah, so reading the 14 pages, I found that the investigators did a very thorough job here. Obviously, there's more to learn, than they probably have much more evidence than what's established in these documents. But what really is interesting to me is this connection to some overseas person speaking Russian. That is very interesting to me. I mean, what is going on here? And then they have a witness now, witness A, that they're looking to protect, and that this person has information about what he was up to, and there's even information in here of him talking about assassinating President Trump.
As far as the evidence, I know you're a former crime scene investigator. What stood out to me was reading that part where there was a surveillance camera apparently in the office where his stepdad was killed. What did you make of that piece of evidence and what apparently that camera shows?
Well, that camera was recovered in the trunk of the vehicle at the car stop in Iowa. When they reviewed the images that were on there, it appears that he may have placed a surveillance camera in the room of the dead stepfather, videotaping the dead stepfather as he lay with all the blankets and other items of clothing that the defendant allegedly put over the victim, and had placed at least 4 candles around the victim. I don't know if the blankets and the candles were used to mask the scent of the decomposition because these bodies had been laying there, but videotaping on this camera a live feed of this dead body. And at the end, the defendant is seen coming in and leaning over the body with the cell phone, potentially taking a photograph. And then he approaches the camera, takes the camera down off its perch, and talks to the camera about, the dead defendant. So who is he sending these images to? Where are these images going? Is he sending this overseas to some foreign person that he's been communicating with in Russian? I mean, very interesting stuff.
It is. He's originally from Moldova. We learned that prosecutor said that he had been in the country for about 10 years with his mom. So he's 17. He came to the U.S. when he was 7 years old. Apparently, in the conversations with witness A, he talked a lot about Russia and fascism, and would send gory videos. From a crime scene investigator standpoint, also we learned that the house apparently was ransacked, that art was taken down off the walls, mattresses were thrown about, drawers were taken out. He has this $14,000 in cash that he was caught with. How important is that to the investigation and establishing the narrative that prosecutors are laying out?
Yeah, so with all these things like the artwork taken down off the wall, was it taken down off the wall for a potential sale? Was it taken down off the wall because maybe things were hidden behind it? Because apparently it appears from the the report we just read that they stored money all over the house, cash, $100 bills, in the Bible, in a photo album, and other things. So if he is searching, ransacking this house, looking for that cash that he knows that his mother and the stepfather have around the house, then it would be good to process the frames and the photos, the pictures, any of the items that he may have touched in ransacking for his fingerprints and DNA. Okay, to associate that, he in fact was the one ransacking the house in that regard. I mean, even though he lives there, but and he has legal access to some of these things, but this was in the bedroom of the parents, okay, the stepfather and his mother, and the artwork. I mean, why would you be taking the artwork down? What's going on there? So, I mean, finding his fingerprints and DNA on that could be important to show that he in fact was rummaging through the house looking for this cash. In that regard, but there's also the ballistics evidence. There's a lot of good ballistics evidence. Now the autopsies are in, so they have all the information about the wounds and positions of the wounds and so forth. So if I had to guess, based upon what I'm reading so far, it looks like he probably assassinated the father first, shot him in the back of the head. Okay, there's no talk of any struggle or fight in that one room where the father was found. There's no talk of that. I didn't hear anything about ransacking in there either. But it also appears that based upon the law enforcement's ability to track the movement of the mother on the 11th, that she had gone to college. She stopped at a store on the way home, and then she was confronted in the after she parked the BMW in the garage. She was confronted in the hallway between the garage and the kitchen, and she has what appears to be like a defensive bullet wound on her wrist. So there's going to be a lot of ballistic work here, and it appears that they have all this matched up already to the gun. But as a very interesting aspect of this, when you have a close shot into a victim, and the entrance wound and exit wounds in a perforating gunshot wound can leave forward spatter and back spatter. Now the back spatter will head towards the shooter, and I hope that they examine that firearm that they recovered from the vehicle for the presence of blood on the firearm, the barrel, and even down the barrel, because sometimes blood gets sucked down into the barrel in those types of back spatter situations. And
from a digital forensic standpoint, he apparently was sending messages that he was planning to do this at the end of last year on Snapchat, which a lot of kids like to use Snapchat because the messages erase after time. Is there any way law enforcement could eventually find those messages? And I also think of Telegram as an app too that often comes up in some difficult cases because of the protections they can have for the free speech, they say, of the parties that are involved.
I would imagine the detectives here would get subpoenas and send them to other social media apps that may be on the defendant's phone and try to gather as much information on there. Now, there's also the other phone involved, okay? So if these Snapchats were sent to another individual and they saved them on their phone, then that's a way to gather up that information as well.
And he was caught with apparently every piece of jewelry that his mom had in this car. And also there were 7 tablets. I mean, there were so many pieces of electronics in the car.
3 laptops, phones.
Right, 3 laptops, 4 phones, and 7 tablets, which it's just, how many homes is that many tablets? But when you catch a suspect that has all of those things in the car, along with a gun that can now, according to prosecutors, be tied to the shooting deaths of his parents in their home. What does that mean for establishing intent as you're putting this case together?
Why would you take all these electronics unless there's some information of value inside of the electronics? Maybe bank accounts, maybe information about stocks and bonds, things of that nature, financial information. In addition, there could be other information in there about communications with individuals overseas and other issues that are going on. They could have encryption apps on there that he's using as well. He may have emails and other items of evidence linking him to communications with individuals about what is going to transpire. There could be a whole lot of information. Now, the jewelry, obviously, you're talking about over $10,000 worth of jewelry here, according to the estimated value that law enforcement was able to obtain. That could be used to porn, to get more money, or that could be used to barter. If he goes to a place like Moldova or Ukraine or Russia, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it's so interesting. These text messages or messages on Telegram that were apparently sent to this person in Russian. And I know we were talking before, it's unclear whether that person was in Russia or Moldova, somewhere in Ukraine, or if they're just speaking in Russian. And so that's still a major question.
Right. I mean, that person could be
forward. Right.
That person could be here in the United States, just speaking Russian to them. He's a flight risk. He had passports, his mother's and his, in the car. He had all this cash. There's talk on the social media and whoever he was talking to about fleeing the country after they did the killings to go to Ukraine and lay low there. So I don't understand why they just didn't ask for him to be remanded and stay in prison, no bond. But the judge did mention some Wisconsin rule that none of the parties here sought to use, and he said it was appropriate to use. I don't know what that rule entails, but I don't think he can make the bond. He has no relatives that can assist him that way. I know there was some talk of that he had a crypto account with like $14,000 in it. I don't know where that came from or how he got it or who put the money in the crypto. Is it this person he's speaking in Russian to? We don't know. So I was miffed by this whole thing. They're claiming he's a flight risk. Well, then remand him, no bond.
And also he's communicating with someone in Russian. There's just so many different elements to this story. I know for you and your experience that you've actually worked in Moldova and you know Eastern Europe, and certainly from the news are far more aware of Russia and Ukraine today than maybe they were 10 years ago. But what can you tell us about where Nikita Casap is originally from and some of the actors that could be involved here when we think about this mystery of who he's talking to on Telegram?
Who knows who's manipulating him? But Moldova is bordering Ukraine and Romania on certain borders, and it's an old Soviet Union republic. During the Cold War, the Soviets manipulated, and to this day, Russian influence is heavy in this region in trying to control the politics of what's going on in that nation. When I visit there, you see all the old remnants of Cold War era Russian communist architecture in the housing and so forth. There are some more modern sections of, by and large, very rural, very agricultural based and so forth.
Yeah, and he moved to the United States apparently 10 years ago with his mom, so he would have been 7 when he left the country. It's unclear what family situation he has in Moldova. I know they said he has a grandmother, but other than that, it doesn't appear he has a lot of family. So there's just a lot of questions, though we seem to be learning more with each court appearance. For you moving forward, obviously a big question is who's he talking to on Telegram? As an investigator, what else at this point stands out to you as we start to piece together what prosecutors say happened?
Well, they're going to have to go through all of those electronics. They're going to have to do a full digital forensic examination of the iPads, the phones, the laptops. They're going to have to download the infotainment system on the vehicle, okay, and get all that information. They're going to have to see, who he was texting and communicating with. And I know they already have some of this information, but do they have the full picture? Okay. Were they able to capture some of these encrypted messages or Russian messages, in Russian rather, back and forth and translate them appropriately to understand the conversations that were going on? Where were those videos being sent from that surveillance camera of the defendant's dead stepdad? Okay, who was he sending that information, those images to? Who was he talking to in the camera at the end before he pulled the camera down off the perch and stopped the filming of the dead stepfather? There's a lot of things here. Again, we want they have some information about the cell phone pings and the towers and the movements. So they should be able to get more data from his cell phone inside the house at the time they say the attacks occurred on the 11th. What movement in and around the house? Because as I've been party to, they can track your movements in your house on your cell phone if the setup of the phone is activated, and you can see him going from room to room to room, and maybe you can associate that with the ransacking that was going on between the time he killed his stepfather and the time his mother came home, and maybe you have that interaction too, because you can see the movement of the mother's cell phone entering the house, and you can get that all correlated in timestamp. As to when he confronts her in that hall between the kitchen and the garage.
When you look at this criminal complaint and all the different elements that are involved, does it make sense that it took this long to formally charge him with 2 counts of murder?
Yeah, given the amount of work they had to do, the amount of legwork they had to do, the amount of digging into the digital stuff, the other evidence from the phone, and also communications, the interviewing of different players involved, the neighbors, the co-workers, the college, this high school. So there was a lot of work to be doing. And they were playing catch up because he already had a week before they figured out what was going on here. It was they entered the 28th, so this happened on the 11th, and they entered the house on the 28th to find the decedents.
And yeah, they believe that he was in the house for roughly 2 weeks. And it's a story that just seems, every time we talk about it, there's just some new kind of bombshell. I know it's a cliche, but bombshell development that's come into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the faces were badly decomped, and the medical examiner couldn't use the faces for identification, so they most likely used dental records to identify the victims.
See what happens next. He's due back in court next month. So I'm sure we'll be continuing to talk about this as we learn more. Ed Wallace, it's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today.